All right, I want to welcome on my next guest. We've got NBA on TNT and NBA TV host and reporter Jared Greenberg. Jared, how's everything going for you?
Great, Zach. A couple of weeks away from the season, so I'm all fired up to finally get back to basketball after a short break.
How long were you in the bubble?
82 days.
What was the process to kind of get settled, and then how long did it take until you could kind of like walk around?
Yeah, it was crazy, man. Feels like forever ago. I guess it was early July. I went in, and for the first 7 days, you don't leave your hotel room except for 5 minutes a day to go get a COVID test, and they delivered all the meals to you. You're sitting in your hotel room. The cool part about it for me as a hoops junkie, that's when the preseason or the kind of exhibition games started. So for me, the saving grace was I had basketball on TV from noon until midnight every day, which kind of saved me. But I guess from going through quarantine, being at home here in Atlanta where I live, the 4 months leading up to it kind of prepared me for that. So that part of it wasn't too bad, the 7 days. And it also let you know how serious the league was taking it, how stringent the protocols were. And then once I completed those 7 days and got my enough negative tests to get out of quarantine, you kind of felt like you broke free and you were onto the campus, which was still a pretty confined space. But it ultimately, you felt a little guilty because it felt like the safest place on earth, really. With the constant COVID tests, everyone had to wear a mask. It was almost ridiculous. I don't think of the 82 days, or at least the days that I was on camera, I went a day without somebody sending me a tweet saying, yo, dude, why do you still have a mask on when you're on camera when you're getting tested every day and everyone is safe? And the whole point of it was, I think, twofold. Number one, they wanted like redundancy in making sure that everyone was extra safe in case somebody slipped through, because negative testing, as we know, doesn't necessarily mean you're always negative, right? Because the moment you test, you're then subjected to it again. There's that space and time. And then the other part of it too was optics. I think it was to set an example for the rest of the country and the rest of the world that, hey, this is how we're doing it. If we're asking you to wear a mask out there in public, we should be doing the same. So ultimately, it was certainly one of the strangest experiences of my life, Zach, but it was also one of the coolest. Some of the interviews I got to do and the opportunities, and to be one of the select few in there was just something I'll never forget, and I appreciate immensely that I got that opportunity.
Did it start out feeling like, okay, this is going to be forever, or did it fly by?
So for me, it was a little weird because my assignments with Turner Sports kept on changing. So my initial time frame, to be truly perfectly transparent with you, was I was only supposed to be there through August, I think, initially. And then before I even got out of quarantine, they extended me to the middle of September. And then a couple of weeks, maybe about a month later, I found out that I would stay through the NBA Finals, which we knew would be the middle of October. So for me, it was like a weird mind trick, because I didn't always. The goalpost kept on getting moved on me on when my end date would be. The weirdest part of it was, I don't know if you want to get into it, but the weirdest part of it was the work stoppage, those 3 days, because there was such a swing of emotion over the course of those 3 days of whether we were going to go home, right? Whether this thing was not going to work and we were going to go home. And then the other part of it too was, how long does this go if we return to play? And how does that affect the end date of when the finals would end? So it was an emotional roller coaster being there.
No, because I remember when the work stoppage started, I'm thinking, all right, is this going to be a couple days, or they're going to wait until after the election? So I'm like, they're going to try to get people to vote. I'm like, this is. Right. Did you have any? Did you think at any point the season's over?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially that night when we were hearing a lot of rumors that players wanted to go home.
Yeah.
And to to be honest with you, there's and I don't know this as fact from anybody from the league office or anything, but I think we all as NBA fans can safely assume this. There is a certain number of players, and it's a select group. But if any one of those or more than one of those from the select group of players had said, you know what, this is not for me.
Yeah.
Well, then not only would there be a domino effect of other players following them, I also don't know how much this benefits the league from operating, because if you don't have the certain star power that the NBA needs to draw ratings, and even, there was all this issues with ratings being down and all that stuff, but you could complain about the ratings all you want.
Yeah.
They would crash if you didn't have some of these guys who we all know who they are. If any one of them decided to go home, we would have to end the season. Yeah.
So if LeBron opted out and Jared Dudley said, all right, I got this, I don't know if they're
Right.
beating Miami. So,
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So does it feel like the off season has flown by? I feel like it's what from what date did do you know how long it's been since the Lakers were champions?
It was like October 13th or October 12th, I think, something like that. Yeah. So it's only been like less than 60 days or so since then. It's felt weird. I mean, the weirdest part for me, this is now my 10th year at Turner Sports. Yeah. And for me, I'm such a creature of habit where, I know what happens at the end of the season. Yeah. The craziest thing for me in a typical year, the busiest part of my calendar year is from the NBA Finals through Summer League. Yeah. Because I do the NBA Finals, then I fly to New York, do the draft, then I fly back to Atlanta, cover free agency, then I fly to Vegas and do Summer League. And then this particular summer, I would have flown back to Atlanta to get ready to cover the Olympics from our studio. So, now that I'm back from the end of the season, I'm like, all right, when am I going to Vegas? How come it's cold out? Like, it's just like weird stuff like that messes with your mind.
Yeah. No, my first thought was when they said, all right, we're restarting in July. I said, no, that's when Summer League is. Right. I don't think anybody else was thinking that. I'm thinking Summer League, like, how are we going to see Peyton Pritchard? So let's go. Yeah. So in your opinion, which team won free agency?
Wow. Well, let's call it the off season instead of, do you mind if we call it the off season?
Yeah.
Because I think, I think with what happened with some of these trades, with some of the coaching changes and some of the GM changes, I think I've been stunned by how good the Lakers have been with their front office, because I've been incredibly critical of Rob Pelinka and the job that he did to begin. I think that they did a sensational job. Yeah. And I think the Phoenix Suns did a great job. Yep. I think the New Orleans Pelicans did a great job, although it probably is more of a long-term effect than a short-term effect. Trying to think who else I think really had a great and the other one is the Atlanta Hawks. Here where I am in Atlanta, they've been preparing to be a spender in free agent for years. And there's been a combination of things. Number one, like so many places, they haven't been seen as a destination where players wanted to go. And number two, they didn't necessarily want to overspend and commit and lock themselves into, let's call it B-level or C-level free agents, thus taking them out of the mix for A-level free agents once that became available. And I think they did a great job of developing some young talent, having that cap space and becoming more of an attractive place to play. And, I don't think anybody is saying the Hawks are going to compete for a championship or even for a top 4 seed in the East. But I think some of the pieces that they added, in particular, some of the young pieces that they've added here, I think are just sensational.
Absolutely. No, are they still paying Joe Johnson, or is that done?
I think Brooklyn's still paying him.
I know Detroit's still paying Josh Smith. So
yeah, exactly.
Do you the one thing everybody was very high on the Gallinari signing, and then they brought in I'm going to butcher his name. Do you think that hinders? They just selected Cam Reddish last year. Do you think that provides? What do you think that does to Cam Reddish?
and DeAndre Hunter too.
Yeah, I forgot he was on the team.
Yeah, they're incredibly deep, and I think, you know, I think it allows them to figure out some things here, and I just they know they need to get better defensively, and I think they were hoping DeAndre Hunter would be a little more impactful. And I think bringing in a guy like Chris Dunn, which is an underrated
I forgot they got
signing.
him.
Yeah, Chris Dunn is,
And Rondo
has got and Rondo, but I would say more so from the Chris Dunn standpoint, has got the chance to be the perfect complementary piece to Trey Young, because the biggest issue with Trey Young here is, number one, he doesn't play that great of defense. He doesn't often try, but he's also undersized. But then the other part of it too is teams go at him, and now the opposing point guard, once Chris Dunn gets healthy here from a little minor injury, he's going to take that responsibility away from Trey Young every single night of having to guard. Chris Dunn is going to be a first team all defensive player in this league in the next couple of years. So, I think some of those moves, but yeah, I would imagine that Travis Slank here is not done, whether it's DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, or John Collins, or even, let's not forget Clint Capella they got. Does he fit into the mix here, or is he now trade bait?
I think they should bring back Ivan Johnson, kind of beef up that front court.
Absolutely.
Where was he banned from? He got in trouble with one of
China, I think.
China. He got into with like a ref or something, and they said you're out of the league. I'm like,
yeah,
him and Antich were the best backup front court, in my opinion, in Atlanta history.
Well, Antich was like the first center that started shooting threes.
He was, and then Pekovic started shooting, and then he stopped. And that's incredible. And then, so do you think the Hawks could be this year's Heat?
No.
I
don't know that they're ready for that. The East is going to be pretty good this year.
Yeah.
I think people kind of always overlook the East, and you have Milwaukee, you have Boston, you have Miami, obviously, and then you've got Toronto, Philadelphia, and then that wild card team, which could win a championship this year, is Brooklyn. So there's, I would say the East is 5 to 6 deep of teams that could be really, really good this year. I think that, the Hawks are going to be good. I would imagine the Hawks make the playoffs. They can't be this year's Heat.
Interesting. What do you think of the Russell Westbrook John Wall swap from last night?
I don't get it on either side. I just don't. I'm not the biggest Russell Westbrook fan. You being in DC, you know this better than I, but there was so much talk over the years of what the true relationship was between Bradley Beal and John Wall. Bradley Beal proved the last couple of years, particularly this past year, that he is an elite scorer in this league. There's no question about that. Now, that didn't always translate to wins, so we could talk about empty numbers or whatever it may be. But if any of those rumors were true that Bradley Beal did not enjoy playing with John Wall, I am not sure how he is going to like playing with a guy like Russell Westbrook, who has never considered time and situation into his decision making in the history of him playing basketball. You give Russell Westbrook credit for playing hard and showing up every night, and I do that. But he's a dude who when he doesn't have the ball, he's got cement blocks on his feet. People talk about him being a hard defender. Watch him when he's defending off the ball. He doesn't move. And then John Wall to Houston, I'm just confused on what the Rockets are doing there. I get the fact that they're going to get hopefully a first round pick, which has got a lot of protections on it. Ultimately, could go down the road. The Rockets are desperate for first round picks, but I'm confused on why these two teams swap these two guys.
Is Bill O'Brien running the Rockets front office now?
Maybe, yeah.
Because you reunite Wall with Boogie. We don't know what Boogie's going to look like.
No.
And then Harden, we don't know what that's going to look like. I don't even know who's on the team anymore. I think they have Eric Gordon. Is Ryan Anderson still there?
No. But Gerald Green's back.
What about Chuck Hayes? They get Chuck Hayes back?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that's interesting. I feel like it's just like a big money swap, because the teams weren't trading with anyone else unless they were just like giving away half the team, and you're not giving away half the team for John Wall. He's had heel surgery. He had the interesting video over the summer, and then he just coming off an Achilles tear. So I don't know. Who do you think has the higher ceiling of the two teams? Houston?
No, I still think Washington, because I
Interesting.
still like the pieces around Russell Westbrook. And that's the thing, you think about Russell Westbrook's best years he's had when he is far and away the best player on the team. And there's not that other guy who can be a clear defined number two, which hasn't resulted in postseason success. Up until this past year, Russell Westbrook's never won a playoff series without Kevin Durant. Never, not in his MVP year. He lost in the first round. So I think Beal, whatever his future is, obviously, I love Denny Avdia, the draft pick. I love Rui Hachimura. I think there are some pieces there. Bringing back Bertans at probably a price higher than you needed to, but in order to keep guys like that in places like DC, you got to do that right now. So I think the team is going to be pretty competitive. There's no question about that. The other part about Westbrook too is, man, he's got so many knee issues, and I know he's still healthier than John Wall is, but you got to hope that Russell Westbrook can stay on the court.
Yeah. And does Gilbert let him wear zero? That's another storyline nobody's talking about. So
that's a great one.
Yeah. And then so one other thing I want to ask you about is, I think I thought the biggest news of the draft wasn't any of the 60 players that were taken. It was Klay Thompson's injury.
No question.
Do you think there's any thought they thought about blowing it up?
I don't know. Because I still think this team, has some really good pieces. And I still think, they'll compete for a playoff spot. I hate talking about this because it sounds like I'm whining about it, but I feel like people have forgotten how great Steph Curry was. And, I don't know. Listen, they're not going to compete for a championship this year without Klay Thompson. I thought with Klay, they absolutely could. But I still think that Steph is not only going to be great this year, but he's got a couple of years ahead of him still in his prime here. So there's no need to blow it up. And I love what they did with the pick of Wiseman. I don't know that much about what Wiseman can bring to the table right away, but I think that's part of the luxury here is that he doesn't have to be in the starting lineup opening night against Brooklyn. He can be a guy that comes off the bench, and if he needs some time to develop, that's fine. And then, now you're looking at next season as a year that you can go for with a really loaded team.
I've got a hot take for you. You're not going to hear it anywhere else, but when it happens, you're going to be like, I can't believe he was right. Andrew Wiggins is an all-star this year.
I've heard some people talk about Andrew Wiggins for most improved player this year.
I heard somebody today, I saw somebody said Sekou Doumbouya for most improved player. I'm like, I don't remember him playing last year. So
no, yeah, he had a great couple of weeks with Detroit last year.
Yeah. So gonna go quick with you. Top 3 teams in the East that intrigue you the most.
That intrigue me the most. Well, number one's going to be Philadelphia, because they've got to figure it out. And we know how trigger happy Daryl Morey is to pull a trade. So whatever he says right now, you don't listen to. What will he learn prior to the trade deadline this year or prior to the draft, in June or whenever the draft is in July, that leads him to move one of Simmons or Embiid? Will something happen? The other team is Brooklyn. Everybody's hyping up. I just heard Karis LeVert this morning say that, the league missed Kevin Durant the last season, and he's back to being his old self. Again, another injury thing. Not just Durant, but can Kyrie stay healthy? And what will the Nets still be in the mix for this Harden deal, which I hope they don't do. So I would say them. Third intriguing team. It's got to be Milwaukee. Just because we're now waiting on, and I hope by the time you post this, I don't ruin it and we haven't heard. But will Giannis sign the Supermax? Will he end all that speculation? I think that he doesn't. But even though he doesn't sign it, it doesn't mean that he wants to leave. I think there's financial reasons why he waits. But there's a lot of pressure now. Mike Budenholzer just said today that he doesn't believe in championship or bust. I can understand why a coach would say that, but I like coaches and teams who embrace the pressure and embrace the moment and the opportunity they have. And I think Milwaukee's under the gun this year, whether Giannis signs or not. Even if Giannis signs to stay for 5 years in the next couple of days, Milwaukee now still has that pressure on them. Giannis still has that pressure on him to get to an NBA Finals and compete for a championship.
Yeah, and then with the Knicks, I think it's the biggest mistake they've made in years by trading for Ed Davis and then moving on from him less than a day later without saying what they had.
You had that one in your back pocket, didn't you?
I had it. I texted my friend who's a Knicks fan. I'm like, you got rid of him for second rounders? It's Ed Davis. I don't know anybody that can name every team he's been on. And it's interesting. And what about in the West? What about the 3 teams that kind of pique your interest the most outside of the 2? Well, the Lakers, because the Clippers, we don't know what's going on. Apparently, I found out yesterday that Kawhi Leonard lives in San Diego, which is a hell of a drive. So what outside of the Lakers, who are 3 teams that intrigue you out West?
I think the Suns, number 1. Can Chris Paul work his magic? Can he do to Phoenix what he did to Oklahoma City this past year? I think Dallas is another where Porzingis is going to start the season hurt. We saw flashes, where he was really good, but it continues to be a problem with him being hurt. And can Luka take that next step? He went from rookie of the year to being in the MVP conversation for most of the season. And then I think third, I'll pick the Rockets just from the standpoint of, what are they going to do with James Harden? And is he going to make life miserable for that organization for not trading him?
You don't think Dort can carry the Thunder into the playoffs?
Maybe him.
Were you at that game in Game 7?
Of which?
With was it Houston, OKC when Dort had the game of the year?
I don't think I was. I don't think I did that game.
But
I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah, most electric game of the year. I'm like, all right, we have a new star in this league. And then I just got one last question for you. So I know they've announced the first half of the season. The second half is TBD. Do you think there's any chance the second half of the season is in a bubble?
Sure, there's a chance. I just, it all comes down to they say health and safety is number 1. Really, it's economics and the finances of the league. The league needed to get those games played this past year, so they were willing to lose even more money to make a little bit of money. It's just so tough. I would highly doubt it. I think things would really, truly have to fall apart. And the hope is with not only enhanced testing, but the vaccine that's coming out, that we won't need to come to that. But I would highly doubt it. But from what we've all learned about 2020, I don't think I'll ever say never, ever again about anything.
What's the biggest standout thing outside of the tragic news of Kobe? What was the thing you took away most from that last season?
How freaking crazy it was.
Like the 30 for 30, if they did one thing in 2020 that went out of the radar. Like I remember a couple of years ago, it was Rob Pelinka telling the story about how Kobe met Heath Ledger 3 years after Heath Ledger had passed away. That was the thing I kind of took away the most. Like, I don't know how you pull it off. This is the best agent in the world, but like, is there anything like last year? Was it Lou Williams with the Wings? That there's anything like that? Just like, oh, this is gonna, I'm gonna remember this forever.
By the way, Magic City is now selling sweatshirts for Christmas if you want to buy one.
They ship them?
They do, yeah.
All right, I'm getting them. Missed out. Should have asked you Monday. No, Cyber Monday. Yeah, it was anything. Was anything? Did you kind of just change your opinion, or anybody that you thought like, all right, this guy just took the next step. We've got a future star in this league.
Oh, Luka, and I think I hope people read into the release of the Christmas Day schedule properly. This is not about, Dallas has a chance to compete with the Lakers, so that we're going to put Dallas against the Lakers.
Yeah.
No, this is our number 1 star of the league, LeBron, against the guy who might be carrying the mantle next, or the guy who's number 2. Luka Doncic is a worldwide phenomenon right now, and he is taking the NBA by storm, and he's that good. Quick story about the bubble with Luka. Rick Carlisle told me this story. And I was involved in it too. When Luka hit that game-winning shot against the Clippers, where you got the Mike Breen rare double bang, I was sitting in my hotel room on the campus in the NBA bubble, which was about a 10-minute drive from the Wild World of Sports where they were playing the games. and you just heard people erupt. And Rick Carlisle's told me that he got a call from a fellow GM, I think it was somebody else in the league or another coach, I'm not sure who, but said he was in the big tower of the hotel and that everybody just went nuts as soon as Luka hit it. And it was so weird. Like, you never get that experience in a city where there's a game going on and all the other NBA teams are sitting at home watching the game together, you know, in their hotel room.
That's wild. That's a good one. The last question, did the Lakers repeat?
I don't see how they don't right now, but I also think that there's going to be some more wildness. And I think the Nets are going to have something to say about it. I think Boston's going to have something to say about it. And I'd like to see Milwaukee have something to say about it. And heck, in the West, I mean, the Clippers better have something to say about it, right? Like, they better be better.
Yeah. I don't know why they traded Shamet. That was the one I was like, what are you doing?
That was kind of weird. But I think that they felt they needed more of a playmaker in Kennard. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's really appreciate you taking the time. How can people find you on social media, keep up with you? And then when is the 22nd is the first day of the regular season?
Yeah, first day of the regular season, December 22nd. TNT has a doubleheader. Oh, cool. Not sure of what my assignments will be yet on TNT, but I'll be on NBA TV all leading up to the start of the season doing team previews. And you can follow me at Jared S. Greenberg on Twitter, Instagram, and whatever other social media outlets you have.